Some kind of dark side pun. What do you want? I'd forgotten that May the 5th was coming up. I threw this together. That's half true. I had been planning to revisit a ranking of the Star Wars movies now that Rise of Skywalker not only is out, but I've had enough distance from it that I can, just think about it and not have to worry excessively about I'm too close to its point of release. So, oh god, this is 2 ranked videos in a row. Is that tacky? It might be tacky. Heck with it. Okay, so let's talk about all 11 Star Wars films. I'm not counting the Ewok films because it's been so long since I saw them to assess them fairly. I have to rewatch them. I ain't doing that. Number 11. Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Here's the thing about this, and I honestly kind of struggled with whether or not I wanted to put this at the bottom, because there are things I like about it. I genuinely love the Darth Maul lightsaber fight. I think that the pod race is pretty good. I think that Ewan McGregor is solid in it. But the things that are bad are so atrociously bad, basically hinging on 2 things. There's the midichlorians, which honestly I'm not as ticked about as I used to be. Don't get me wrong, it's massively, horrifically stupid, but it doesn't actually affect too much about the story going on. It's dropped in because George was decided to do it. But what drives me crazy more than anything, more than Jar Jar Binks, it's Anakin. Why the heck is he 9 years old? Why isn't he 13, 14, an age where a line like, I've been a pilot my whole life, has any meaning whatsoever? When a 9-year-old says, it's like, oh, that's cute. I'm supposed to take you seriously? No. Things at the bottom. I can't watch this anymore. Number 10. Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. There's nothing in this that's as bad as what is bad about Star Wars Episode 1. But there isn't a lot that's great about it either. I have more things that I'm like, oh yeah, that bit in Episode 1 than I do in Episode 2. There's almost nothing in Episode 2 that is particularly memorable. It just doesn't hit the lows as hard. I guess that's a mild improvement, although I'm not going to be applying that consistently. There were some other close calls here where it was between a film that either had more mediocrity or more wildly varying things that I felt about it, depending on the part of the film. And I'm not going to do it the same way each time, but in this case, I'm going to put it slightly above Episode 1, just because the things that infuriate me about Episode 1, they infuriate me so much to the point that I can't even watch it. Episode 2, it's not that I feel like I would get angry if I tried to watch it again, I just get bored. Number 9, Solo. This is another case where I would largely just be bored. It's not even that bad a film. It tries to do way too much. It basically takes every single known fact about Han Solo and crams it into his first adventure ever, where he's meeting Chewie, meeting Lando, getting the Falcon, doing the Kessel Run, and by the end of it, setting himself up with Jabba. Like, really? That's that was just dumb. It should have been like any one of those things. It should not have been all of those things. That said, performances are pretty good. Chemistry between Han and Chewie is solid. That works. The action's decent. It's pretty well shot. There's, again, not a lot in the way of particular highs. It's fine. It's functional. It gets the job done. That's about all I've got. Number 8. The Rise of Skywalker. Episode 9. I really didn't know where I was going to put this, and if you'd watched my review of that, you might have thought it would have been higher than this, or at the very least above The Last Jedi, because coming out of it, I was happier with the viewing experience of it than I was with The Last Jedi, and that was absolutely true, but the more I think about it, it's just such a jumbled, chaotic mess of a movie. You can tell that this was something that was thrown together very hastily to meet a release date, that there were old scrapped plans. You can feel the process. You can feel that somebody was brought in at the last minute to take over this. The plot is pulled out of its butt. And as they've released more stuff to try and cover up the plot holes, my immediate thought has always been, why wasn't that just in the movie? There's still a few good things in here, mostly having to do with Kylo Ren, who I will still cite as the MVP of the new trilogy. I found him the most consistently fascinating character in each entry. And I found his arc here to be really good. I thought his bond with Rey was very good. There was some cool moments. There was some good banter. I liked the planet hopping in a bit of the treasure hunt. That was kind of fun, but oh my god, the Emperor and the climax of this thing is, oh, ridiculous. Read like fan fiction. Number 7. Episode 8, The Last Jedi. Yeah, so I did put it above Rise of Skywalker, but not by much. So I'll just reiterate quickly, the problems I have with this thing are not the ones that the loudest detractors of this movie have. I don't think that Rey being nobody is a problem. I actually think that was one of the best moves that this movie made, and it's one of the things that I really dislike about Episode 9 was undoing that, because I thought it was one of the few really solid decisions this film made. So, it's a deconstruction, but it's a deconstruction using the characters, as opposed to doing an alternate universe, doing surrogates for the characters, and when you deconstruct something, you break it. And in some cases, that just annoyed people. That bugged me a little to some extent, but on the whole, it doesn't make sense. And I don't mean logistically, I mean thematically, and I mean flow and construction, especially in terms of a trilogy. And it's so evident now that these films were not fully planned, but they were presenting them as if they were. And this felt so disconnected from the previous one. And even as a film unto itself, it has sections that do not need to be there, characters that don't have a heck of a lot of function, and some of the things that get tied up in a way that's like, well, what was even the point of that? Number 6. Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. I have a soft spot for this one. It's the one prequel film that I will actually watch for pleasure. There's still some awkward notes in it. Some of the character beats they're just not written with very much elegance, and the actors are doing the best they can with them. But I like the overall trajectory of the characters. Some of the story beats I think are really solid. Some of the moments I think are incredibly well done. The execution of Order 66 is phenomenally done. I remember that choked me up first time I saw it in the theater. And there's a lot of good here, but it is weighed down in a lot of the baggage of a script that is clunky and actors who don't know how to deliver this kind of dialogue and an over-reliance on CGI. But I will tell you, that last lightsaber fight, I give it props because it carries a lot of emotional weight, and that is down to some solid performances. I do enjoy this film. Number 5. Episode 7, The Force Awakens. Yeah, I do still like this. Even though everything came apart after this, I do still actually enjoy this as a film unto itself. There are bits that are a little less fun now, all the sequel baiting that is in this, but as a story unto itself, I still like it. I like the vibe. I think it does a very good job of recapturing the feel of the original Star Wars films. That's what I wanted from this film. That's what I got from this film. It just works for me. Number 4, Rogue One. Front half of this thing is a little bit clunky. You can feel the hands on it. You can see the stitches because the flow for the front half is very janky, and it doesn't have a great transition from scene to scene, setting to setting, character beat to character beat. It just kind of chugs along for a bit. But once they get on that planet for their actual mission at the end, once that starts through to the end, mwah, I love it. I love most of these characters. I find them really fun and enjoyable and endearing, and just really, I enjoy having them around. There's obviously the Darth Vader stuff, but that was icing on the cake. Even before that, I really liked this movie. I like that they had the guts to kill everybody, which was that was the thing that I was so convinced they wouldn't do, and I would be leaving going, they should have killed everyone, but they didn't have the guts to do it. But they did it. And that's how it should have ended. It gets off to a rocky start. But once it gets ahead of steam, this thing just cooks. Now, this does mean that, huge shock, top 3 is the original 3 films. Big surprise, they're what I grew up on. Nostalgia's powerful, let's do it. Number 3, Return of the Jedi. I think the only complaints I have about this are complaints that I am looking at it with an adult eye. The first act is very disconnected from the regular. All the stuff at Jabba's palace, while it's very cool, from any sort of structural story standpoint, like, that is a completely detached thing. It's like a super extra long pre-credit sequence from a Bond film. But it's just fun. And, things like the Ewoks, yeah, maybe they were a little bit too cutesy, but I'm kind of okay with them. And again, maybe that's nostalgia, but I can see, as an adult, with a better knowledge of story structure and how things lay out to be, more efficient and for best flow, I can see flaws in this that as a kid I wouldn't have even known to look for. That doesn't do a lot to diminish my enjoyment of the film, but it does mean that it brings it down a little bit lower. That last lightsaber fight between Darth Vader and Luke, though, that's my favorite lightsaber fight of this entire franchise. I gotta put that out there. Number 2, The Empire Strikes Back. I would say this is actually probably the best film in the franchise from a filmmaking, nuts and bolts, script, direction, acting, most objective measure standpoints. This is the best made film. It's not my favorite, but it is phenomenally well made. It is such a wonderful next step from what happened before. It both manages to scale up the threat while also making the threat more personal when it comes to what's going on with Luke and Darth Vader. It manages to do both at the same time, and that is no small thing. That plus all these wonderful new locations, terrifically bizarre characters, an excellent lightsaber duel, that's inventive and in a way that first one with Obi-Wan in A New Hope just wasn't. But it is such a perfect escalation from the film that is my actual favorite. Number 1, A New Hope. I can't justify this for anything other than nostalgia. What I can tell you, though, is when I was a kid and I would play Star Wars, when I would pretend, I was always pretending parts of this film. It was the infiltration of the Death Star, or it was the trench run, or it was Luke and Han blasting the TIE fighters and the Millennium Falcon. This was always the one that connected with my inner child the best. Or when I was actually a child, just me as a kid. And it's one that stuck with my inner child ever since. And since these are part of my childhood, and I love them as that, I'm not sure necessarily first and foremost, but very heavily, the one that still speaks the loudest to my child, my inner child, yeah, I have to give that the number 1 spot. I can't not. That's my ranking for these films. What's yours? Whatever it is. Drop it on down in the comments. Leave your thoughts on mine. Or whatever else you want to do. There's links. Subscribe, like, share this around. Consider supporting me on Patreon, perhaps. Whatever you feel like doing. No pressure, though. I'm not going to tell you what to do. End of the day, you're the council. I just run the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned. You will like, share, and subscribe. Sorry, had to try.